7 years have passed since the fire swallowed the horizon and tore her world in 7 years, since the cry of her cub was lost to smoke and silence, since her jaw was shattered and her voice stolen, since the earth turned cold beneath her paws. And every sunrise only reminded her of what she could no longer hold. She has not roared, she has not rested, but something in her still listens, still aches, still waits. And then without warning, the wind changes. A sound not heard, but felt crawls through. The tall grass, like a memory too loud to forget a cry, sharp enough to crack the wall of time. And in that moment, pain becomes motion. Silence becomes instinct. And she begins to run, because some bonds do not break. They go quiet. They go deep. And when they return, they do not ask. They pull you back into the fire. Each morning she rose with the sun, though not because she waited for it, but because the body remembered before the heart could object, her movements slow, deliberate, not with age, but with the weight of repetition. She walked the same path through the grass, past the dry riverbed and the half-fallen tree, where once she had rested with him, curled against her chest. Now she paused there, out of habit, not hope her tongue dragged across her paw, not in grooming, but in absence. Her eyes scanned the horizon, not in hunger, but in instinct for something that no longer came. The herd passed, and she did not follow the birds, stirred, and she did not flinch. She drank when the heat demanded it. She laid beneath the same scorched tree when the wind grew too sharp from time to time. Her mouth opened as if to call, but nothing rose, only the echo of what used to be. And in the stillness of each dusk, as shadows crept like hands across the savannah, she turned her gaze toward nothing at all and stayed there as though waiting for a sound only she remembered. It began with the sky turning wrong, a deep red that bled into black smoke curling low across the ground. Not like cloud, but like a predator then, came the heat thick and furious, chasing everything that breathed into panic. Her cub pressed to her side, trembling his heartbeat, a frantic flutter against her ribs. And then the world exploded in sound, cracking trees, screaming animals, walls of fire that moved like living things. She ran. He ran. Then a moment of blindness, a crashing branch, the sting of flame. And when she turned, he was gone. Not far, not yet, but the smoke swallowed everything, and every direction looked the same. She called, but the sound came out, crooked, broken, her jaw already failing her. She searched, choking on ash, clawing through embers again and again until the night came, and still she searched for hours, days, seasons. His scent thinned, then vanished, but she stayed as if time might rewind. If she waited long enough, something in her closed a door inside, slammed shut, and she let it stay that way. Her body kept moving, but her spirit folded in on itself. No longer fierce, only quiet, no longer present, only surviving the world around her went on, but she moved through it, like mist watched from a distance, avoided by all, touched by nothing. The fire had gone, but it had never left her. Everything since then was measured by silence and what she could not bring back. Let me pause. For just a moment, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? Have you ever had someone remember you after many years apart? Whether it was a person or even an animal. A moment when time didn't matter, and something deep inside still recognized you. If stories like this speak to your heart, don't forget to follow. There's so much more to come. It came like a whisper. She hadn't expected a sound too fragile to trust, yet too familiar to ignore, carried on the wind, just as the sky dipped into that burnt orange between day and night. One broken cry, not loud, but sharp enough to slice through years of silence. And suddenly everything inside her tightened. Her breath caught, her limbs froze. Memory surged forward, uninvited, the scent of her cub, the weight of him pressed against her chest, the soft grumble of his dreams. And that sound, that same kind of cry. A question clawed its way up from where she'd buried it. Could it be? Is it possible? Do they remember? Do I? She stood there torn between fear and longing, between the safety of forgetting and the danger of hope. But then her paws moved on their own, slow at first, as if testing reality, then faster. Each step driven by something older than thought. Her body screamed against the motion. Her jaw ached with every breath, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. The wind pulled at her fur. The thorns tugged at her skin, and still, she moved guided by a sound that should have meant nothing but meant everything. And when she found him, not her cub, but his child, the likeness shattered her breath, and something inside her heart cracked open, not with pain, but with light. She knew then this wasn't a mistake. This was a callback to the fire, back to love, back to what had once made her alive, and this time she would not lose. She would not let go. She would carry what remained, even if it broke her. It came like a whisper. She hadn't expected a sound too fragile to trust, yet too familiar to ignore, carried on the wind, just as the sky dipped into that burnt orange between day and night. One broken cry, not loud, but sharp enough to slice through years of silence, and suddenly, everything inside her tightened. Her breath caught, her limbs froze, memory surged forward, uninvited, the scent of her cub. The weight of him pressed against her chest, the soft grumble of his dreams, and that sound, that same kind of cry. A question clawed its way up from where she'd buried it. Could it be? Is it possible? Do they remember? Do I? She stood there torn between fear and longing, between the safety of forgetting and the danger of hope. But then her paws moved on their own, slow at first, as if testing reality, then faster, each step driven by something older than thought. Her body screamed against the motion. Her jaw ached with every breath. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. The wind pulled at her fur. The thorns tugged at her skin. And still she moved, guided by a sound that should have meant nothing, but meant everything. And when she found him, not her cub, but his child, the likeness shattered her breath, and something inside her heart cracked open. Not with pain, but with light. She knew then this wasn't a mistake. This was a callback to the fire, back to love, back to what had once made her alive. And this time she would not lose. She would not let go. She would carry what remained, even if it broke her. She stood still for a long moment, her body trembling from exhaustion, her broken jaw stretched wide to cradle the tiny life she had carried for miles. Each step had been agony, but now in the stillness, as she placed the cub down in the dust, the world seemed to hold its breath. The rangers didn't move. Not yet. They didn't speak. Not yet. Something sacred was unfolding. The cub lay there dazed, blinking his wide amber eyes, and then slowly he turned toward her. The wind shifted just enough to carry her scent to him, and that was when it happened. His nose twitched, his ears perked, and he took one uncertain step closer, then another, the space between them barely a breath. But the moment stretched long and heavy, as though the past itself waited to be acknowledged. She didn't move, her eyes fixed on him, soft, not pleading, not expectant, just present. And then he reached her, pressed his head into the curve of her chest, and she lowered hers in return. Not in dominance, not in instinct, but in memory. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was a quiet surrender, a meeting of soul to soul across the gap of time and blood. He nuzzled deeper, and she let out a breath so slow, so fragile it trembled in the air like something finally exhaled. After years of being held, the rangers still did not move. One of them wiped his eyes, another whispered something about a miracle, but she heard none of it. All she knew was that the world had tilted. The silence inside her cracked, and something warm began to flow again, not just through her veins, but through time itself. She had been lost so long, and now without words, without explanation, she was found. In the days that followed, something unspoken began to shift. The cub no longer flinched at shadows. Instead, he played, tugged at her tail, climbed over her back, pressed his small head into her side, as though reminding her with every touch that she was no longer alone. And she responded not with instinct, but intention. She let him climb. She let him stay. She licked the dirt from his fur with slow, deliberate strokes, even when her jaw ached, and the rangers noticed how she no longer kept her distance, how she lay close to the others, how she turned her head when called, not out of fear but awareness. She began to eat again, not hungrily, but with steady rhythm, her body remembering. Survival. Her eyes softer now, less guarded, as if some great internal storm had begun to settle. Sometimes they would lie together in the golden light, her paw draped loosely over him, and when he blinked up at her, there was something familiar, not just in his face but in her own reflection, in his gaze, something that said, "I see you, and I'm still here," and slowly, breath by breath, life began to return. Not the life that was lost, but a life reshaped by it. And in that quiet return, a truth revealed itself, that love remembered does not fade. It waits. It lingers. It keeps the heart beating, even when everything else goes still. And when it returns, it does not roar. It simply rests where it belongs. Some bonds are not made of sound or touch, but of something deeper, something that survives in the quiet, when everything else falls away. They do not fade with distance or time. They simply go still, waiting beneath the silence for a reason to rise again. And when they do not need to explain. They are known, instantly, felt completely. And in that knowing, there is no fear, only recognition. What was lost does not always return in the same form, but sometimes it returns in the only way that matters, in a gaze, in a breath, in a heartbeat shared once more, and in that moment something broken mends without a word, because true connection does not vanish. It waits, it watches, and when the moment is right, it comes back to remind us that we were never really alone.